If you've been looking at your life lately and quietly thinking, I should be further along by now, then I want you to stay with me. Because feeling behind in life is one of the most painful and discouraging feelings there is, but it is not always telling you the truth. Hello, my dear friends, and welcome. If you are new here, I'm so happy you found your way to this channel today. And if you are one of my returning friends, thank you so much for coming back and spending this time with me. It truly means more than you know, and I never take your presence here for granted. Today I want to speak to anyone whose heart has been feeling heavy lately. Anyone who has looked around and thought, everyone else seems to be moving forward, and I somehow feel behind. Behind in life, behind in love, behind in success, behind in healing, behind in confidence, behind in where you thought you would be by now. And if that is you, then I want you to stay with me today because this conversation is for you. The title of this video is, If You Feel Behind in Life, Watch This. Now I want to begin by saying something very gently but very clearly. Feeling behind does not mean you are failing. It does not mean you missed your life. It does not mean it is too late. It does not mean everyone else has figured something out that you have not. And it certainly does not mean your story has no more beautiful chapters left. Very often, feeling behind is what happens when we measure our inner life against other people's outer appearance. We compare our private struggles to someone else's polished image. We compare our slow healing to someone else's visible progress. We compare our real, complicated human life to a timeline that may not have been meant for us in the first place. And that kind of comparison can make even a good life feel like a late one. So today, I want to talk with you heart to heart about why so many of us feel behind, why that feeling can be so painful, and what I have come to understand about it over time. And as always, when we finish, I would love for you to share in the comments if you have ever felt this way too, because I think so many women do, even if they do not always say it out loud. So let's begin. The first thing I want to tell you is this: life is not unfolding on one single schedule. This may be one of the hardest things for human beings to truly accept. We are taught in so many subtle and not so subtle ways that life is supposed to happen by certain ages and in certain orders. By this age, you should have found love. By this age, you should be financially secure. By this age, you should be confident. By this age, you should have the right home, the right body, the right career, the right relationship, the right social circle, the right level of wisdom, the right kind of peace. And if you do not have those things by the appointed age, you begin to feel as though you have somehow fallen off the track. But who made that track? Who decided that healing must happen by 35? That success must happen by 40? That reinvention must happen by 50? That peace must happen by 60? That love, courage, purpose, joy, freedom, creativity, or self-respect must all arrive on cue? Life does not move that way. Some people find love early and lose it later. Some people struggle for years and bloom quietly in their 60s. Some people seem successful on the outside and are deeply lost inside. Some people begin again after divorce, after grief, after illness, after financial hardship, after caregiving, after loneliness, after raising children, after retirement. Some of the most meaningful chapters begin long after the world says they should have. And if you feel behind, perhaps one of the kindest things you can do for yourself is to question the timeline you are grieving. Was it ever truly yours? Or was it borrowed from the expectations of the world? There is no universal clock for becoming who you are meant to be. There is only your life, your timing, your lessons, your griefs, your openings, your chapters. And they may not look like anyone else's. That does not make them wrong. It makes them yours. The second thing I want to tell you is this: comparison creates an emotional lie. Comparison is one of the fastest ways to make a perfectly human life feel inadequate. You may have a roof over your head, food in your kitchen, a few people who love you, a body that has carried you through much, a mind that is still learning, and a spirit that still wants to grow. And yet all it takes is one glance at someone else's life, or what appears to be their life, and suddenly your own begins to feel insufficient. That is such a painful thing. And I think it has become even more intense in modern life because we are constantly exposed to other people's highlight reels, their milestones, their happy photos, their progress, their marriages, their vacations, their confidence, their homes, their beauty, their achievements. But what we are seeing is rarely the whole truth. We do not see the loneliness behind the picture, the debt behind the lifestyle, the anxiety behind the smile, the disconnection behind the polished marriage, the years of private struggle behind the visible success, the grief behind the brave face. And yet we compare our full reality to their edited fragments. Of course that makes us feel behind, but the feeling is built on a false equation. You are comparing the inside of your life to the outside of someone else's, and that will wound you every time. Now, I am not saying we never notice others. That is human. Nor am I saying we cannot be inspired by someone else's journey. But there is a difference between inspiration and self-abandonment. Inspiration says, if something beautiful is possible for them, maybe possibility exists for me too. Comparison says, their life proves that mine is lacking. And that is such a cruel message to repeat to yourself. If you feel behind, spend less time staring sideways. Return to your own ground. Return to your own needs. Return to your own life. There is wisdom in looking inward instead of outward. There is peace in tending your own garden instead of grieving someone else's flowers. The third thing I want to tell you is this: some seasons are for blooming and some are for surviving. This is something I wish more people understood. Not every season of life is meant to look impressive. Some seasons are not about achievement at all. Some seasons are about getting through, about holding yourself together, about caring for a sick loved one, about grieving, about healing after heartbreak, about rebuilding after disappointment, about recovering your confidence, about learning how to breathe again, about surviving something no one else can fully see. And if you are in one of those seasons, you may look around and think, why is everyone else moving ahead while I am just trying to cope? But survival is not failure. Healing is not laziness. Grieving is not weakness. Slowness is not falling behind. Rest is not irresponsibility. Rebuilding is not wasted time. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman does in a year is simply not give up. She gets out of bed. She makes the appointment. She pays the bill. She keeps the house going. She tends to the wound no one sees. She keeps loving despite disappointment. She keeps moving through a season she never asked for. And because that labor is often invisible, she gives herself no credit for it. She says, I should be further along. but perhaps she does not realize how much strength it has taken just to remain standing. If you are in a hard season, please do not judge your life by the standards of someone who is in an easier one. Different seasons ask different things of us. A field lying still in winter is not dead. It is gathering, resting, preparing, enduring. And human beings are like that too. If you feel behind, perhaps you are not behind at all. Perhaps you are in a season that requires tenderness, not pressure. The fourth thing I want to tell you is this. Feeling behind often means you have not honored how much you've carried. I think women do this all the time. They minimize what they've lived through. They say, well, everyone has problems. Well, I should be over it by now. Well, it wasn't that bad. Well, I've just got to move on. And in doing so, they dismiss the very real emotional weight they have been carrying for years. Perhaps you raised children while struggling privately. Perhaps you stayed in a hard marriage too long. Perhaps you went through divorce. Perhaps you lost someone you loved. Perhaps you spent years caring for others and forgot yourself. Perhaps you dealt with health challenges, financial strain, loneliness, betrayal, depression, anxiety, or simply the quiet ache of being unseen. All of that shapes a life. All of that affects timing. All of that changes energy. All of that slows things down in ways that cannot always be measured from the outside. So when you look at your life and say, I should be further ahead, I want you to ask yourself, ahead of what? And according to whom? Would you say to a dear friend after everything she has carried, you really should have accomplished more by now? I hope not. You would probably say, no wonder you're tired. No wonder it took time. No wonder your path has looked different. No wonder you had to heal slowly. So why not offer yourself that same mercy? A woman who has carried much is not behind. She is carrying history. She is carrying invisible labor. She is carrying a life that may have demanded much more from her than anyone realizes. And I think one of the most healing things we can do is stop measuring ourselves without accounting for the weight we have carried. The fifth thing I want to tell you is this. It is never too late to begin more honestly. Now this matters very much to me, because when people feel behind, they often begin to give up. They think, well, if I haven't done it by now, what's the point? If I haven't found it by now, maybe I never will. If I haven't become that woman yet, perhaps I missed my chance. But I do not believe that. Not at all. I have seen too much life to believe that. I have seen women start over in their 60s. I have seen women find peace after years of turmoil. I have seen women leave what was hurting them. I have seen women discover creativity, companionship, confidence, spiritual depth, healthier habits, new purpose, and a quieter joy long after they believed the door had closed. Sometimes what changes a life is not one dramatic leap. Sometimes it is one honest step, one phone call, one boundary, one class, one walk, one apology, one decision to stop settling, one choice to care for your body, one refusal to keep living for other people's opinions, one brave little act of participation in your own future. That is how life opens again, not always loudly, not always all at once, but truly. If you feel behind, please don't let that feeling become an excuse to abandon the rest of your life. The future does not require you to be caught up. It only asks that you show up. And there is a great difference. The sixth thing I want to tell you is this. Maturity is not being ahead of others. It is becoming more deeply yourself. When we are younger, we often think maturity means having it all figured out, the right answers, the stable life, the tidy identity, the confidence, the certainty. But age teaches us something different. Maturity is not about having a perfect timeline. It is not about being first. It is not about impressing other people. It is not about performing success. Maturity is learning what matters to you. Maturity is knowing what disturbs your peace. Maturity is recognizing what is no longer worth your energy. Maturity is becoming less interested in appearances and more interested in truth. Maturity is being able to say, "This is my life, and I want to live it more honestly now." That is a beautiful thing. You do not need to be ahead of anyone to have a meaningful life. You need to be present in your own. And I think many women feel behind because they are still chasing an image of life rather than inhabiting the life they actually have. But peace begins when you stop asking, "How do I compare?" and start asking, "What is true for me now? What do I need now? What matters now? What kind of life feels nourishing now? What kind of relationships feel mutual now? What kind of pace feels healthy now?" Those are sacred questions, and they lead you home to yourself. The seventh thing I want to tell you is this: the ordinary life is not a lesser life. So much of feeling behind comes from believing that an ordinary life is somehow not enough. If your life is not dramatic enough, successful enough, glamorous enough, romantic enough, productive enough, visible enough, then perhaps it does not count as much. But that is such a false and damaging idea. Most of life is ordinary. It is dishes and laundry, doctor's appointments and phone calls, quiet mornings and tired evenings, paying bills, walking the dog, making soup, tidying up, thinking things over, sitting by the window, starting again tomorrow. This is life, and if you cannot find meaning in ordinary life, then no milestone will satisfy you for long. Some of the richest lives are very quiet from the outside: a peaceful home, a few sincere people, a body cared for, a conscience at rest, a heart still capable of affection, an ordinary day with a little beauty in it. That is not behind, that is blessed. Now, of course, if there are things you still long for, honor those longings. There is nothing wrong with wanting more healing, more purpose, more connection, more joy. But do not insult the life you already have by calling it nothing simply because it is not flashy. Sometimes the woman who feels behind is actually standing in the middle of a life that many souls would find deeply meaningful if only she would see it clearly. The eighth thing I want to tell you is this: the feeling of being behind often disappears when you start living in alignment. This may be the most practical truth of all. So much internal distress comes from misalignment. You say yes when you mean no. You live by other people's expectations. You stay too long in what drains you. You ignore your body. You silence your voice. You chase what doesn't really fit you. You compare instead of listen. You perform instead of rest. And over time, you feel disconnected from your own life. That disconnection often gets interpreted as "I'm behind." But sometimes the truth is simpler. You are out of alignment with yourself. And when that begins to change, something inside begins to settle. You may still not have every answer. Your circumstances may not transform overnight. The future may still be uncertain. But if you begin telling the truth, if you begin making choices that respect your spirit, if you begin caring for your body, if you begin protecting your peace, if you begin honoring what matters and releasing what does not, Then the life you are living begins to feel more like your own. And when your life feels like your own, you stop panicking so much about whether it looks right to others, because alignment brings dignity. Alignment brings steadiness. Alignment brings relief. And relief is sometimes the first sign that healing has begun. So, my dear friends, if you feel behind in life, I want to leave you with this. You are not too late. You are not disqualified. You are not less worthy because your path has taken longer, hurt more, or looked different than you expected. You may simply be living a life that required a different kind of becoming. Perhaps you needed more time. Perhaps you carried more weight. Perhaps you had lessons to learn that other people cannot see. Perhaps your blooming was always meant to be slower, deeper, quieter, and truer. And there is no shame in that. Please do not let the world rush you out of your own unfolding. Some souls are not meant to hurry. Some lives are not meant to be lived on borrowed timelines. Some chapters do not arrive early because they are being prepared carefully. And if you are breathing, learning, softening, healing, trying, beginning again, telling the truth, and still hoping, then you are not behind. You are alive. You are in process. You are on the way. And that is a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this conversation touched your heart, I would love for you to tell me in the comments if you have ever felt behind in life and what helped you come back to yourself. Your comments are always so heartfelt and wise, and I know they help others feel less alone too. And until next time, please do something kind for yourself today. Step away from comparison. Sit quietly for a few moments. Make a lovely cup of tea. Open the window. Take a walk. Put your hand on your heart and remind yourself gently, I am not behind. I am becoming. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this message spoke to your heart, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you know someone who may need this conversation right now, please share this video with them. Take gentle care of yourself today, and I hope to see you in my next video.